Good morning and welcome to Blain's Morning Porridge. It's April the 9th, 2026. What will we talk about this morning? The end of exceptionalism. Let's start off with a quote. I saw a death head sticker on a Cadillac. There is something deeply unstable underlying the current markets. They just don't feel right. Something has changed. What could it be? It's likely to be how Trump's misjudgements in Iran and over NATO have reset expectations and accelerated the end of the American age. The implications for markets will be huge. So it's an interesting global picture this morning. There is not much of a ceasefire in the Gulf, but the massive de-escalation rally continues apace, and it's founded on a very unlikely premise that the world will simply go back to where we were before February 28th, and Trump decided to bomb Iran. You can never go back. Time moves in one direction only. Change is the rule, and this world is changing faster than we think. So step back from the markets for a second and try to figure out the rhyme and reason of the current moves. And it all feels a bit too fervid for me. Something has happened and we don't know what it is. To understand what happens next, we have to understand what's changed. Now, I could cite you 1,000 reasons to be bearish and far fewer to be ecstatically bullish. Many readers of the Morning Porridge, especially here in Europe, feel much the same sense of angst and stomach-churning concern. Markets just don't feel right. They've never felt so bearish and unconvinced by the apparently buoyant sentiment we see in prices. And consider the following, just a few of the many inconsistencies that dominate the current markets. The global economy has just suffered its biggest shock in decades from Hormuz oil flows, which could take months to unravel. But stock markets are touching record levels, even though the ceasefire looks about as solid as a wet Sunday post. Bond yields have risen to reflect rising inflation fears, but stock prices say boom times are coming. US Vice President J.D. Vance is in Hungary actively campaigning for Putin's sidekick and EU hater Orban, while Trump threatens to pull out of NATO. But markets don't fear the breakdown of the most beneficial military economic alliance in history might be a problem. And SpaceX is still to get one of its Starship Heavy boosters into orbit, and no one knows how to make a space-based data center work, but the IPO is set to touch $2 trillion and be the biggest on record. How is it the market happily believes so many impossible things before breakfast? I think there are many reasons for that, but they boil down to a couple of minor factors and one big, insurmountable issue, which naturally I'll come to at the end of this morning's porridge. The first factor is buy the dip mentality, that markets are on a perpetual roll because if anything ever goes wrong, then global central banks will have no option but to step in and bail them out. Buy the dip is now a Pavlovian response to any market wobble. It hides underlying weakness, and it's why so many market participants will be caught wrong when the big one inevitably hits. But the smart money rationalizes buy the dip as a very simple relationship. Due to the unsustainable levels of national debt, they, that is the monetary authorities, governments, central banks, George Soros et al., delete where applicable, can't risk bond markets clapping out. And the only way to keep bond markets troggling along is for markets to be bright and rosy and utterly convinced we are always in the bright, shiny morning of a market rally. Now, there was a time when you would flee to the relative safety of bond markets if the stock markets looked iffy, but now the connection between falling taxes and unsustainable debt are just too strong to completely ignore. Perversely, I'm not so worried about bonds. I know that financially sovereign nations don't go bust unless something does, someone or something does or says something profoundly stupid or daft. Which leads me to my second thematic factor this morning, It's about market madness, the profundity of stupidity and personality cults. A few months ago, I half seriously wrote about the possibility that Trump would decide to punish nations that upset him by selectively defaulting on US Treasury bonds. And yesterday, an American lawyer who keeps his brain under a MAGA hat suggested it's a serious option Trump is considering. Oh dear, in God and treasuries we once trusted. The issue is trust that we put in the people who dominate the markets. And if you want a good example of how that's debatable, read the current takedown of OpenAI head Sam Altman in the New Yorker. There's a link on the website. This is the man leading the AI revolution, and the article is based on interviews with those that know him best, the data scientists who ousted him from OpenAI in 2024, who accused him of misleading them, being careless of the AI risks, of being less than honest and open, power mad and manipulative. Read the article and then decide if this is the kind of guy who has our best interests at heart. And ask yourselves the same questions about Trump and his cabinet, taking the USA into an unnecessary war with no clear vision of what winning it would look like has done faith in America no favours, a massive strategic defeat they can't acknowledge. But that is the thing about the American century. It's been a story of big, noisy, exciting personalities who dominated the global picture. They were film stars, musicians, sportsmen and women, politicians and business people who exercised soft and real power. These were the figures who made America exceptional for over 100 years. Now today, these personalities still exist, and they are as brash, but the ones that matter now belong to a very select club of tech bro billionaires. Musk, Altman, Trump, Thiel, Andreessen, Zuckerberg, and the rest. They demand our focus. They represent a new form of exceptionalism, money and power, not so much culture and ideas. America is not what it was, and Trump has pretty much blown the foundations of America's real power, its soft cultural power that made us all want to be like them. That's no longer the case. And this is the big issue, the end of the American century, the end of the age of exceptionalism. And that is the crack in the mirror that Trump's misadventures in Iran have exposed. The president is now lashing out. He blames NATO. Last night, he lambasted NATO head Mark Rutte over Europe's failure to support the USA over Iran, and clearly he threatened to pull out of NATO. Trump thinks he's doing a deal. No, Europe gets it. The divorce papers are probably already in Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the EU's handbag. When NATO breaks, and it will because the trust in what was the most successful military and economic alliance of all time has gone, they might talk reconciliation, but NATO is over and the world will change very quickly as a result. And I believe that's why so many European investors I speak with are so concerned about the market's implausible strength. They know something geopolitically huge has happened that changes the very basis of markets. So here's my swift outlook for the coming months. Yes, this could unravel very quickly. We will see the US AI boom dissipate as it becomes clear there are alternatives and the market is not so huge. And that will remove a massive driver from the US stock markets. We will see pushback on American tech as US firms run into European regulatory hurdles and purges. And yes, there will be pushback from America, prefigured by the way that Trump has dissed Europe for not joining him in Iran, even as Europe stops buying American goods. And the Chinese will smile. Anyway, out of time and back to the day job. Couple of notes though, don't forget that my new book, The Battle for Hamble, is published today. You can get it on Amazon. It's all about how my village is under attack by bad planning, greedy corporates, economic illiteracy, but luckily we're fighting back. You can read the Morning Porridge every day on www.morningporridge.com, and if you sign up, you get it delivered fresh to your email. Anyway, thanks very much for your time and attention, and I'll be back with something else tomorrow. Thanks.